welcome to Afflictions Sugarcoated, a podcast where we sugarcoat some of the world's so-called afflictions and rate their plausibility on a scale of 1 to 5. I'm Minnie Kim, and today we'll be sugarcoating soccer, or as the rest of the world likes to call it, football. Soccer season is in full swing now, and we're making some progress on my team. I'm not going to pretend and say that I know a lot about soccer or that I'm good at playing soccer. I do love playing it. I love watching it. I love the players, but I can tell you anything about everything else except for a couple of things I caught up on Instagram or any other form of social media. And I definitely don't dare even comment about Ronaldo and Messi, although there is a pretty clear answer. But I'll keep it there. So I've gathered a lot of research on the teams, players, memes, etc. I do know how to play, but explaining it, other people are better at that. Firstly, in terms of the global stage, I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, but there's the World Cup, and this has existed since 1930 for men and 1991 for women. And the World Cup is essentially the pinnacle of soccer. It stops nations, it fuels nationalism, and it creates legends. Brazil has the most men's titles, and the US has the most women's titles. They have four. It truly is everything, including sports washing, etc. Talking about sports washing, soccer is actually more than just a sport. It is practically the intermingling of identity, politics, economics, art. I mean, clubs often represent entire cities, classes, or even political movements. But I'll try to stay away from that because I do know some people do get triggered, and people do like to say sport for sport's sake, as we like to say art for art's sake. In terms of the players, there are icons of the past like Pele from Brazil, Diego Maradona from Argentina. There's George Best from Northern Ireland, Franz Beckenbauer from Germany. And then we have the modern legends. We have Lionel Messi from Argentina, Cristiano Ronaldo from Portugal, and the versus Ronaldo rivalry has defined the last 15 years, I would say. But, that's slowly coming to a close, as we saw in the last World Cup, which I'll also get to. Then we have the women's pioneers. Most of them are from the US. We have Maya Hamm, Marta from Brazil, Abby Wambach, Alex Morgan, Sam Kerr from Australia, etc. Then we have the clubs. We have Europe's giants, which are Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, AC Milan, and Juventus. And then we have, obviously, PSG. Then we have the historic rivalries. We call it El Clasico. Barcelona versus Real Madrid, the politics of Catalonia versus central Spain. Then we have the Super Clasico, which is the Boca Juniors versus the River Plate in Argentina, which is essentially the working class versus the elite. And then we have the Manchester Derby, the United versus City. Tradition versus new money, as they would say. And then we have the Old Firm, the Celtic versus the Rangers in Scotland, which is essentially Catholic versus Protestant roots. So soccer is definitely not just kicking a ball across the field and shooting it into a net. It is the politics of an entire nation encapsulated by teams. Now let's move on to the favorite part: controversies and drama. We have the Qatar 2022 World Cup, which has corruption allegations, human rights abuses of migrant workers, climate concerns. All of this was very majorly in the news. So if you had followed the news, you would have seen a lot of this been being criticized, a lot of this being actually applauded because it would bring light into more people's interests in soccer, but also the fact that there are problems in Qatar that we do need to address. And the World Cup did is exactly that. Then we have the FIFA corruption scandals in 2015. Top officials were arrested for bribery and vote rigging in tournament bids, which in fact reminds me of the Peaky Blinders. Then we have the European Super League in 2021. Elite clubs tried to form a closed league, which received massive backlash from fans, and it collapsed within 48 hours. Then there's a lot of match fixing and bribery, for example, Italy scandal in 2006. Then we have gender inequality. The US women's national team fought a landmark case for equal pay, and they won in 2022. And I guess this connects widely to the previous part, but money and power, obviously, for every single topic I talk about, there is something about money and something about power. We have the transfer markets in which players are bought and sold for record fees. In fact, Neymar went to PSG for 222 million euros in 2017. We have the oil money clubs, PSG in Qatar, Manchester City and Abu Dhabi, Newcastle United in Saudi Arabia. Then we have the agents and the super deals. Mino Raiola is a late agent, and Jorge Mendes, now player themselves like Ronaldo and Messi, leverage image rights. And one of the main things I like is the culture of soccer. The chants and the songs of Liverpool that say, "You'll never walk alone." The fashion and the style of soccer jerseys as streetwear, Beckham's haircuts, Ronaldo's branding. We have film and literature. We have politics and protests. Soccer was used by dictators like Mussolini and Argentina's junta and by rebels. But the current storyline is never ending. Messi, now in MLS, is bringing attention to US soccer. Ronaldo is in Saudi Arabia as part of Saudi's quote unquote sports washing push. We have Kylian Mbappe, who's from France, and if you watch the last World Cup match, the final, you will know that he could have been the savior of France in the brutal battle against Argentina, who is seen as the next global superstar. Women's games are exploding, I would say. Massive crowds in Spain and England. There is the Barcelona Femini dominating. One of the things I've always loved about soccer is that, like other team sports like team field hockey, ice hockey, lacrosse, etc., it's a perfect conglomeration of a team. There's the goalkeeper, the defense, the midfield, the attack. It's really amazing how we all need to work together and how a strategy can change everything. Famous plays are often not just individual plays, but team plays. And as I was saying that, I thought to myself, why not go over the legendary goals and plays throughout the few years? We have Maradona's goal of the century in the 1986 World Cup of Argentina versus England. He dribbled past five English players from midfield and scored, and this is still considered the greatest goal ever. We have Maradona's Hand of God in the 1986 World Cup. It's the same match, in fact. He punched the ball into the net. This was illegal, but it still counted. The symbol of soccer's controversy and genius still lasts with Maradona's Hand of God. We have Pele's dummy in 1970 World Cup of Brazil versus Uruguay. He let the ball run past the keeper without touching it, then circled around and nearly scored, which was pure artistry, if I say so myself. Roberto Baggio's missed penalty in 1994 World Cup final of Italy versus Brazil, it skied the decisive kick, one of the most famous misses ever. We have Zidane's volley in the 2002 Champions League final of Real Madrid versus Bayer Leverkusen. I already butchered that. It was a left foot strike from the edge of the box, and it's a textbook perfect goal, as they would say. Then, of course, we have Lionel Messi's World Cup final goal in 2022. It capped a 7-goal thriller against France and cemented Messi's legacy. Nothing could retrieve this moment. And I think, although the goal was clean, it wasn't the most amazing goal ever. It didn't wow people, the goal itself, but the win was all that mattered. It was the last goal in a penalty. And I love how we all get so nostalgic thinking about these plays. The sensation when you're watching a team, rooting for a team, and they suddenly score, or a goal goes in the other side, or the goal goes in our side, or a goal almost goes in. And you're at the stadium just watching it all happen. But at the same time, you almost feel like you're part of the team. You're playing with them because your heart races accordingly. You're playing with them because you're cheering them on, and you're playing with them because you know what they want to hear from the bleachers. But even as a player, it's great. I started playing soccer ever since I could play a sport. I probably took it from my sister. In Korea, there isn't really a popularization of field hockey or ice hockey or lacrosse, so it made sense that this was the first team sport I played. I was also in a British school for the longest time of my life, so if I remember anything, it's that the Brits love football. I also did used to call it football until I got introduced to American football, which I guess similar sentiments do apply, but only for a specific country and with twice the magnitude, i.e., the Super Bowl. I started out my soccer career as an attacker. The main thing was that I was just a fast kid. I was agile and I was pretty thin at the time, who could control the ball to some extent, and I could score goals. I honestly don't remember how I played soccer back then, but I just know that I played a lot. Every waking moment that I had, I just played soccer. And I was decent at it among my group of friends, but my group of friends were pretty bad at soccer, to be honest. We even traveled to Malaysia as part of a school program to compete in softball, soccer, track, and swim, and I remember just taking a lot of medals in the process. And one specific game I remember was, in fact, when I was in Malaysia. I got put in as an attacker as against probably the best team in the entire competition, and this entire competition was in fact 1 week long. So this was high stakes. I'd gone to a different country just to compete in certain sports as, I don't know, a 10-year-old, and I remember having the whole weight of the team on my shoulders, which honestly everyone else was probably also feeling. The difference was that with either a tie or a goal down, I had so many scoring opportunities. I was able to grab the soccer ball and run towards the goal, but I always remember not having enough strength in my legs to kick the ball past the goalkeeper. So the ball always just ended up rolling into the goalkeeper's hands, and there was nothing I hated more. I wanted to score the goal for the team, but I was getting more and more exhausted. Now, it would have been great if I could truly tell you that I scored a last minute goal that flipped the entire field, but to be honest, I don't remember what happened. It was years ago, probably 5 years ago, but I have a terrible memory of my childhood. All I know is that our team came second place overall, so we did probably lose that round. But I think I would have remembered if we lost, because I couldn't score a goal out of the bajillion times that I had the opportunity to do so. So then, out of nowhere, I transitioned to midfield. I don't know why. I was just fast, and again, that role honestly suited me better if I could just get the ball to the attacker, who, in good hopes, didn't have cold feet like me. And I think this was my best role for a while. I got the ball to other people, I got the ball from other people, and I chased the ball quite well. I even scored sometimes if I didn't get cold feet. But now that I'm no longer in elementary or middle school, the field has gotten quite big. We play on a full-size field, and it's very tiring to be a midfielder for even 20 minutes, especially if the other team is good. So I've resorted to defense, which is both very heavy on my shoulders and lighter at the same time. The time the defense has possession of the ball is slightly lighter. We only get the ball up to the field, i.e., just not close to the goal unless it's for a strategic purpose. Also, being defense is pretty fun. The satisfaction when you steal the ball from attack is impossible to match, but if the attack gets in front of me, that's when the heartbeat kicks in. We have time to we do have time to recover, hoping that there is some other person behind me to stop the attacker, but it's just sometimes not the case. It also heavily depends on how good the other team is. It's a fluctuating position, but I still feel love for it. It's tiring when it's tiring, and it's not tiring when it's not. I do have to agree that soccer is a very dangerous sport. People die from soccer sometimes in the most extreme cases. They get injuries. They have irrecoverable injuries sometimes. They tear they tear their ACL, etc. But it's also a sport that wins. It teaches us so many things, and as Zidane said, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. And because soccer is the epitome of feeling part of something, that swelling sensation inside your stomach when your team scores a goal, that's why we keep playing. And that's why I play the defensive position, because it feels like I'm part of something greater than just myself. I give the sugarcoating of soccer or football a 4.5. This podcast was written and produced by me, Minnie Kim. If you have any comments or reviews, please feel free to write any and all thoughts in your podcast reviews. If you'd like to suggest an affliction for me to sugarcoat, please email me via afflictionsugarcoated@gmail.com. If you have a favorite soccer team, player, or anything else about soccer that you would like me to know, I'd love to hear it. And if you play a sport, cheers to this season, and may you reap all the wins you possibly can. I'll talk to you next month.